Stu Gatz here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love a good gummy. Whether I'm on the golf course or winding down after a long day of carrying the show on my back, all I need is one good gummy to help me totally relax. And now, thanks to my good friends at CBDMD, getting Delta 9 THC gummies shipped directly to your door is not only possible, it's easy and affordable. How about that? Every CBDMD Delta 9 gummy is packed with 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, and let me tell you, buddy, they work. CBDMD also has Delta 9 microdose capsules that feature 1 milligram of THC, so it's easy to enjoy them whenever, wherever. And listen, I know it's easy to get confused with all the different Deltas out there, but Delta 9 THC is the same good old-fashioned THC we've all known and loved for years. To learn more about Delta 9 and everything else CBDMD has to offer, just head to cbdmd.com/Dan. Once again, that's cbdmd.com/Dan for information, education, and the best damn gummies you've ever had. Must be 21 years or older to purchase Delta 9.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stu Gatz podcast.
Do you just want to restart it?
Sure, let's restart.
All right.
Even though
Give
we're
us a
live.
countdown.
Even though we're live, give us a
In
countdown.
5.
Okay, yes. 4.
3, 2, 1.
The Deshaun Watson news is fairly shocking today. I think most people listening to this would say to themselves, that's an under-punishment, even not knowing much of anything else, right? There aren't a whole lot of Deshaun Watson supporters out there.
They are. Yeah, no, there's plenty. In the state of Ohio, there's a bunch. In parts of South Carolina, there are a bunch. He has a very passionate, as any person that goes through scandal, like their defenders just fortify themselves in these beliefs. They're ultra defensive. They're in the wrong, but they don't want to admit it. They're stubborn. They're holding on to things they hold dear. Now, because of the sports tribalism, you have people that have to be all in and defend Deshaun Watson, even if they find it problematic. So I find Brown's Twitter certainly changed over the last few months in staunch defense of this guy.
And they win now. You endured the hurricane of blowback. You endured Mike Ryan quitting his fandom of your football team because some of it was so dirty and disgusting. You have a quarterback's private parts, dry humping women, the details as expressed by these women of like throwing his semen at them are galling and feel like crimes. And the penalty is that Deshaun Watson wins. The Cleveland Browns win. They endured whatever had to be endured, and in the negotiations and guaranteeing him the money, they now get 10 years of Deshaun Watson. They ran off Baker Mayfield, the Odell Beckham thing, the season of expectations, all of that was run off. The bridge to that now gets you to Deshaun Watson, and very soon people will be talking about what is the impact of not playing that position at a high rate of speed for 2 years. Very soon the conversation will turn to him as a player, and in 6 games, this might not be forgotten, but the Cleveland Browns will win. They have a franchise quarterback. The big winner today is not football. It's certainly not women. It's not Roger Goodell. It is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. They win today with this penalty that has 1 division game in it.
Yeah, the key part being they win today. If you look at that franchise's history, and if you look at Deshaun Watson's personal history, you can't rule out, like, you think this is done? I personally don't. I think a lot of people are spinning this as a win. To me, an independent arbiter told you he did some of that shit. He got punished for doing it. The problems that you had with Deshaun Watson entering this are not gone. They've been confirmed by an independent arbiter, and yet it's framed as a win. He didn't lose a cent last season.
He's not losing much this season.
He's losing $345,000.
Again, this, man, oh man, if you're a woman watching this and the machine working this way to take away Goodell's power on this one where you are realizing an emperor has no clothes situation. For so many years, Roger Goodell has gotten his salary to where it is as a piñata for the owners because he was the hard-line commissioner who was going to clean up the criminals in his league. And he overpunished beyond the law. And for him to not be able to fight this one out, for him to have to get out of the way as the Browns win, Deshaun Watson wins, and women lose, and your sport loses, but for 6 games. Because you think this is going to make its way into the broadcasts? You think there's going to be a lot of, you think in 10 games from now, hell, look at what Tyreek Hill has already done for the Dolphins. Look at what he's already done for the Dolphins. You think 10 games from now, anybody's going to be talking about a quarterback who had a dry humping table problem?
No, they'll talk about it Monday Night Football when he comes back, and I think league broadcast partners have shown you that they're not really all that interested in applying that kind of context to it. Look at the celebration of Ben Roethlisberger's career that ESPN threw on his final home game against the Cleveland Browns last year. They tend to avoid these things. It really disappoints me, and I can't say I expected more, that right now on Cleveland radio you have people celebrating this. You have people analyzing this right now on ESPN. What does this mean for the Browns? Only one division game. Wow, they got a lucky break with the schedule. All of it to me is very sad and pathetic because he did a lot of this and he had the resources to settle it. You had someone in a position of authority tell you as much, that a lot of suspicions were confirmed, a lot of allegations were confirmed, and yet this is being held up as a major victory.
Can I go back, though, for a second, Mike, on the history of this? You get mad every time I frame this around Goodell, but Goodell has been here as a symbol for ownership shield. Goodell makes his money, a money that is now private because he makes so much of it. Because the television money is so giant. This man made his name on being the guy who punishes above the law. It's how he became the biggest commissioner in sports. Manfred follows him on Trevor Bauer. Manfred learned at his knee, wait a minute, when a guy does something like this, I can get rid of him for years and end his career. Goodell was the pioneer there, using his power like it hadn't been used by anybody since baseball commissioners actually governed the game in the 1920s. And today he puts down his sword. Today the players union and the lawyers and Rusty Hardin, all of them.
Well, we don't know if we don't know the appeals process, and it wasn't today. It was in the last round of collective bargaining in which everyone saw that Roger Goodell had too much authority over the punishment, the league discipline, and it got changed. This is not really a Roger Goodell story. For me, it becomes one if Roger then decides to take it into his hands and appeal this decision, because then he has a lot more power. And I think he just wants to avoid that entirely.
Doesn't he have to?
No, I don't.
Isn't he incentivized to look?
What, to keep this national conversation
incentivized to look like he cares, to incentivized to pretend like he cares how this feels to his league. Which way is he incentivized today? Is it to make it a larger public fight where he says, look, I'm trying to do more here. I'm trying to govern the way I've always governed. I overpunish. I'm not the light on crime commissioner.
Well, who does Roger Goodell answer to? The other owners. Do the other owners want to draw this out? Because it's not Roger Goodell. Like, morally, I know for a fact Roger Goodell has been sampling opinions, asking for advice. What should he do? He's been running scenarios. But keep in mind, early on in this process, and we had reports that it was invoked, the behavior of other owners. Daniel Snyder, Jerry Jones. You think he wants to appeal that and have that discussion, go right back out there? The NFLPA already told you, NFL, you better not appeal this.
Okay, so just know then, if that's the way that they go, if the hardline commissioner says, nope, not interested in that fight, they will have told you. They would have put out the press release. Don't actually care about women. Don't even care how things look. Nope, just want it to go away. Want Deshaun Watson to win, the Browns to win, the NFL to win, and women lose.
And
like,
Roger
if
Goodell's
he does not fight this.
But Roger Goodell's doing his job, right? Because you're blaming Roger Goodell right now when, like, he didn't come up with this decision. The league recommended a year. The league engaged in settlement talks trying to get 12 games.
The reason I'm blaming Roger Goodell is because I know that name, because he set forth the rules that made it so that in an instant like this, he can be governor. You tell me that.
But he also collectively bargained a scenario in which right now he can just walk away from this. He did not have a say in this punishment. He actually caught a public L. He wanted a year. And in settlement talks, he wanted 12 games and a hefty fine. Like, the loss that you're saying that it's just been like, we have a spotlight on this L that Roger Goodell perceived in the public. The L came years ago when they collectively bargained that he wouldn't be the guy.
He's acknowledged that he's not going to do this anymore. He is not the over-punishing commissioner. Now, he still could be, because after this process, the appeal comes to him. If the NFL wants to appeal it, they can. But they negotiated this process, and this is according to Albert Breer, at least in part because some owners, after so many missteps in discipline over the last decade, wanted the NFL to take a step back in that arena and essentially outsource it to a neutral arbitrator. They have done so. This has been the product of it. And so Roger Goodell can decide right now whether or not he wants to continue to be in this game, or has he officially quit it.
You can't claim that you care about women if it's about how things look and business and everything else takes a priority over how it is you made your name as the Punisher. That's
harsh. I think it's too harsh. I understand. Look, I am not defending that the NFL cares about women. If you look at their toxic work culture, if you see how they covered up
Mike,
the Washington Commanders
if what you're telling me is that they can't set a precedent here because look at what it does to Snyder. All of this is still men protecting men.
Yeah, I think the decision to whether move forward, and we need that shoe to drop, the decision to move forward with an appeal, I think the priority there is not women. It's probably men who are in ownership positions because they don't want to have that conversation drawn out in public. I get you. But also, this was an independent arbiter who was a woman. Roger Goodell had nothing to do with this decision. His decision comes now. I imagine he's going to take the appropriate amount of time to move forward with what to do, and he's going to ask his bosses, the NFL owners, and they are going to care a hell of a lot less about women than maybe even he does.
Do I have something wrong in the system of this when I ask you guys the question, an independent arbiter who is a woman, does she have to take into account what has been their workplace precedent of Roger Goodell as an overpunisher, or is she giving 6 games to a guy who's gotten around the legalities of this and is dealing with civil complaints? Is she giving the extension of this is the new NFL where we still are punishers, because in most workplaces you could, if you have the value of Deshaun Watson, end up not suffering any 6-game suspension before this recent move toward 20 years of Roger Goodell doing the over-punishing thing to lead all of sports on, we will prosecute crimes that are not crimes according to the law.
I hear you, but if that person is applying context from something outside and not judging the case by just simply the merits of the case, then they are acting in a fallacy of justice, right? Because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be totally independent. You're supposed to block out anything that happened prior to, anything that might happen afterwards, your own personal bias about the league. That is not your job when your sole focus is justice and fairness.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That before Goodell, there wasn't a scenario where a league could come in and give you 6 games for something that wasn't a crime.
Right.
There
were no crimes committed here, according to grand jury indictments.
That is correct, and yet still it gets 6 games. And what I am saying, Goodell set up a construct that I've been telling you for 15 years. The NFL is not equipped. They don't quietly get away at the end with, we'll sit it out now because I was wrong about all that over-punishing stuff. Now I'm making $40 million a year. We all profited off my over-punishing stuff because we couldn't have Chris Henry out here and Ocho Cinco committing crimes.
Right. I think the punishment that you want, you're more upset that Goodell's not getting enough punishment for the sins of his past.
Not just Goodell, the entire structure meant to camouflage all of the power so that Goodell is the highest you can go up on the heat because he's the pioneer on the discipline. That at the very end of this, what you get is, again, women trampled in the protection of Snyder. What you get again.
If he doesn't pull that last lever.
And why wouldn't he? He's incentivized to. The only incentive to not to is the bad look. You're saying the owners want it to just go away. They don't want more heat on Snyder. That's protection of the business. It's cowardice at the highest end.
It's also a partnership. You're adhering to a collective bargaining agreement, and you're listening.
Now you're agreeing to it. When you were the overpunisher and trampled everybody's
years ago,
collectively bargained rights.
You agreed to it.
And so when he gets my wrath, it's because it's the symbol they're throwing out there and paying that way to take it as they all hide behind him on a day where it can't be disputed that women were trampled in the process of protecting all entities in the business when we're sitting here in Cleveland celebrating because it looks like, again, and pardon the pun, Deshaun Watson got off.
Yeah. I think Roger Goodell is earning his money right now during this segment. Because, again, we're not keeping our eye on the ball. We had someone tell us that Deshaun Watson did those things. He got a punishment for it. And we're out here talking about Roger Goodell. When he was powerless in this situation, and now he can decide if he wants to throw himself in there. And what happens if he does? That doesn't mean you're going to take it easy on him.
But Mike,
it's still not going to be enough.
You say he was powerless in this situation. What I'm telling you is there's still time for him to not be that kind of impotent. He doesn't have to choose to be that powerless. He can in the defense of Daniel Snyder. But when people ask me what's to be done here, and I'm like, how about the right thing? He's actually incentivized to try and give him 12 games just so that it looks hot. Even if he doesn't mean it, even if he doesn't care about women, the bluster of it would virtue signal. I'm
just so jaded by all of this. We're caring about optics, and we're talking about, well, then what feels right? This isn't enough. What feels right? 4 divisional round game. It's just... You get what I'm saying? It's stupid. The fact that Cleveland decided to get this quarterback, to me, is problematic. The fact that this league has this in their employ is problematic. The Commanders thing bothers me. All of this, I just find the parsing of, well, that's not enough punishment. Ooh, great. He comes back Monday Night Football. That's a home game against the Bengals. We can win that one now. All of it feels so stupid to me. All of it. There were victims here. Some of them have settled.
But they're still victims, is my point, Mike. All of this brings it right back up.
They're always going to be victims, too. Everybody but one. I think Busby just announced that 3 of the remaining 4 have settled. That's not, they got lucky. They had leverage in a negotiation. They were wronged. Their rights were trampled. Their privacy was invaded. None of that changes with today. Because Deshaun Watson, miraculously, in the eyes of Browns fans, is only missing 1 divisional game. It's what there was validity to those claims. And I would honestly be worried about having that person on my team still, because it's very clear, with a mountain of allegations against him, that he had a problem. And he's told you on the record that he's not going to be seeking help because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. So I would have a very deep concern. More so today than I had about Deshaun Watson even yesterday. All of it is gross to me. I do kind of, in this scenario, and he is not a martyr by any stretch of the imagination, but Roger Goodell is a conversation? Really?
It's the system. It's not Goodell. It's how the system conspires, including to how it's discussed afterward, where it's 1 division game, and we know that more than the names of the victims.
Right. It's the owners, Dan. It's the owners.
I know, but Mike, the owners are shielded by someone they're paying handsomely to be the absorber of these things as he makes the rules. And I wanted pointed out in front of everybody that the owners here are protecting themselves in the service of the business through their lackey who has the power and is incentivized to use it right now, if not for the cowardice of having to protect the men in the building.
Well, now you're hitting it for me. Now you're starting to nail it.
But it's the same thing. To me, they're synonyms. To me, but to me, he's the highly paid shield for them so that they stay in the shadows.
Stu Gatz here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love a good gummy. Whether I'm on the golf course or winding down after a long day of carrying the show on my back, all I need is one good gummy to help me totally relax. And now, thanks to my good friends at CBDMD, getting Delta 9 THC gummies shipped directly to your door is not only possible, it's easy and affordable. How about that? Every CBDMD Delta 9 gummy is packed with 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, and let me tell you, buddy, they work. CBDMD also has Delta 9 microdose capsules that feature 1 milligram of THC, so it's easy to enjoy them whenever, wherever. And listen, I know it's easy to get confused with all the different Deltas out there, but Delta 9 THC is the same good old-fashioned THC we've all known and loved for years. To learn more about Delta 9 and everything else CBDMD has to offer, just head to cbdmd.com/Dan. Once again, that's cbdmd.com/Dan for information, education, and the best damn gummies you've ever had. Must be 21 years or older to purchase Delta 9.
I don't even think it's necessarily about NFL owners at the moment either. I think it's about a system that sucks with handling this particular thing. If you look at, for example, the arbitrator, Sue Robinson, according to Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, only heard 5 of the total complaints that there were when there's, I believe, over 30 now of the total complaints against Deshaun Watson. The NFL only investigated 5 of them. And that's the data that Sue Robinson worked off of. So we had a conversation earlier in the show. Did this woman have more information than the public?
Jessica said that she had less information than the public.
And that has been confirmed by reporting since. And so,
is an arbiter not allowed to read news reports? Like, is an arbiter an arbiter treated like a jury?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, in some ways, like the whole point of using an arbiter. Yeah, the whole point of it is to have some vehicle of the legal system used here.
What you're pining for is a violation of what that job aspires to.
I thought the independent...
The NFL does an investigation and then presents their findings. So the NFL investigation, I think they only interviewed 10 of the women, and then she only included 5 in her judgment.
Right.
For whatever reason, she might have found 5 of them she didn't consider rose to the level of worth punishing him for. We don't exactly know. There's a 15-page report that I haven't read yet. But yeah, the NFL did investigative work and then presented a case on their behalf, arguing for the indefinite suspension, and then she gets to decide what of that evidence she's going to rule on.
The context should be framed by the two parties, not because the independent arbiter saw a segment on HBO Real Sports one day and is coming into it with a set agenda. That's not what you want out of an independent arbiter.
Okay, so you guys are going to have to forgive me on this, because I am, and I remain of the assumption until you prove to me otherwise, that an independent arbiter, all they're doing there is not bought by the league, independent of the league, and also not bought by the Players Association, independent of those two entities, aspiring to objectivity, but not sequestering herself and not able to get any other information from anywhere other than what's proven to her in arguments. I don't believe that that's the case for an independent arbiter. I think she's aspiring to objectivity, but she is perhaps watching HBO. She's not avoiding HBO Real Sports.
I understand the cynicism there, but the oaths that they take mean that they have to aspire to objectivity.
But again, for women who come forward, you have to relive this constantly in public. You have to see this man now run out onto the field on Monday Night Football. You have to continually watch as your cases are not believed. Your cases don't lead to bigger punishment.
Even as they've been proven, as Mike says.
Correct.
As an independent arbiter has said.
Right. The criminal justice system does nothing with it via grand jury. This sucks for women in every single possible way. And so that, for me, is the story here, is how much the system fails women who come forward.
I can't even imagine being a victim of Deshaun Watson's right now. I find this conversation triggering. I ran away from that franchise because I didn't want to be reminded of it. I want to avoid it as much as I humanly can because I have a visceral reaction to it. It doesn't feel like justice was served today, even though you have someone telling you something happened.
And you guys can get frustrated with this if you want, but my point, again and again, on Goodell and ownership, what is the point of having power if you're not going to actually lead with it? If every principle is going to be in governance of business? It is immoral. You want to talk about independent arbiter? Business owners here are independent in making sure that their needs of business are met no matter who it tramples. And if you want to give all these people with all the FU money in the world the power to change, the power to lead, and all they do is throw that piñata in front of you at $40 million a year because he lives in service of protection of the rules and that system. The rules in that system, but it's not leadership. It's just making money. It's just protection of business.
Yeah, he's a CEO, basically. He's a front-facing suit that is answering to a capitalistic venture.
It should piss you off.
They don't make money by like being nice people.
No.
Like all of these billionaires who own football teams have gotten there one way or another by doing things that most of us would find morally objectionable.
And it lands at the feet of Roger Goodell, who probably should have hired an independent arbiter himself for his position here because he has his own biases entering in it. Think about the prism that you're asking him to run it through. It's like, we have to show that we're supportive of women, but I also have to see how this lands with Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder because of their workplaces.
It's not what I'm asking him to do. It's what he volunteered for when he took the job and they created it and they turned him into the guy who rides it on a stallion.
He's not volunteering for a job he's getting paid $60 million to do.
No, but he volunteered for taking up the effort to be criminal punisher, moral stand football. We're conservative.
I think for a while maybe he thought that like doing quote unquote the right thing was good for business, and it doesn't seem like it matters if you do the right thing or not. It's like the entire, like all of David Sampson's cynicism is basically just reiterating that over and over, that like as a leader of one of these businesses, you can basically operate in bad faith all the time, and people love their sports team so much that they don't really care. And that's what Sampson would say, at least, that these owners are banking on. I would argue that like that's pretty bleak and depressing, and I think it's probably worthwhile to call them out when they do it. But like that is the business of sports and of like a lot of large corporations in America.
12 years ago, you have your cigar-filled room of a bunch of NFL owners being embarrassed by the behavior of Adam Pac-Man Jones and say, we have to do something about this. They didn't really assume that 12 years later, their names would be invoked in the NFLPA's case of, wait a second, if you're going to punish us, you got to punish Robert Kraft, and you got to punish Jerry Jones, and you got to punish Daniel Snyder, because they're out here doing these things too. They acted like they were above the law, and those that are above the law have the most punitive measures for those they feel break it.
Dan, you've talked a lot about how Roger Goodell was, over punisher and took his, responsibility personally. But every time the NFL has failed here, they have failed in under punishing, because Ray Rice only got 2 games in 2014. He didn't play after that, but he only got a 2-game suspension from the league in 2014. You believe that they have failed here in under punishing. Is what you're basically saying you want Roger Goodell to double down on being the punishment commissioner? Because it didn't seem like you liked it.
No, what I would say to you, and this was so ever present after the stuff that happened with George Floyd and the way they went from, nope, Colin Kaepernick, wrong, never mind, we were wrong about anything. We were wrong about everything, never mind. I'd just like them to stand for something other than money. Something. You have all the money in the world. You're not that popular. It doesn't affect your bottom line. And nothing affects your bottom line. All there is money pouring in from everywhere. Is the point of having money just to make more money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how they became billionaires.
Correct.
Especially,
okay.
not that there are too many benevolent billionaires. If you were to find something a little bit nicer, you might find it in the NBA. But the NFL, where the average age of an NFL owner is 73.
Yeah, and they own teams.
They're old money. The NFL is old money in every sense of the word.
Okay, but what I want is change, guys. Like this is not. It happens to be through sports.
I agree with you, but it's not hard to like look at this and realize why this happens and like why it keeps happening. Like you don't have to read the CBA. You don't have to analyze Roger Goodell's like job history over the last 10 years. Like it's pretty easy to see how this continues to just happen over and over again. Even though like outside of sports, it's like, oh, we had this Me Too movement and now women feel empowered to speak up. And it's like, yeah, but there's still like a system in place, the criminal justice system, and also all of these other institutions that we look to lead us that haven't changed.
But you guys are numb to the lie, then, is what you're telling me. You're good with the idea that they've been selling us this, and it's a lie, and now it's like, never mind. You guys are just good with it.
I'm not good with it. I just see through it.
But as a business strategy or as optics, you guys are so numb to the insincerity of it, to the stand for nothing but money, that when it arrives yet again on your doorstep, we are going to spend cheering Deshaun Watson today if we're Browns fans, because we're only going to lose him for 6 games, and it feels like we just won the offseason. You're that numb. You're that sports business and billionaires and business and money in general have left you so cynical that you're numb to the lies and the insincerity, and you just expect it.
I do think from talking to folks and knowing that Roger Goodell has been out there speaking to people, wondering, never really envisioning this day would come when he took this job. It was all expansion fees and TV rights. He was trying to avoid the scenario in which, yet again, he is the bad guy and he is wrong.
I disagree with you so much there in that he invited the scenario by getting in over his head on being bigger than the law. He profited off the scenario. Profited off the lie, and gets out at the end with a parachute. And you guys are like, this is not about Goodell. And I'm like, it is about the way power leads and changes and doesn't. It's about the way power protects and money protects and doesn't. It's about who it protects and doesn't. And you guys are like, well, business. And I'm like, seriously?
You just want him to show up and be a vigilante. He's got to lose his job if he's a vigilante. Not that
But he promised me he was a vigilante. Forgive me. I mentioned Ocho Cinco. That's my bad. He's never had a problem. No,
he did have a problem. He had an allegation of physical abuse.
While he was, that's right, at the end.
Dolphins.
But Pac-Man Jones and Chris Henry is where the league was out of control. The black criminals are taking over. We have to stamp this out, and it would birth Kaepernick. It would birth the idea that this league's not out of control. We're a conservative league, and we will rain down unholy punishment over the law and the players' union. We will not collectively bargain this. There is no bargain here. We will crush the player because we can't have the league looking like it's run by criminals. And now the quarterback looks like he's a criminal.
All of it is gross, Dan. It's why, my NFL Rob Lowe thing is really just me becoming an NFL nihilist at this point. I like the sport too much to quit it entirely because I love my Sundays. I love fantasy sports. I love gambling on it. I love watching the game. I love the strategy. I love playing it. I love football. I'm not going to cut it out of my life. The business of football is gross. What is really gross. It's really gross what's happening right now. Today's decision, the fact that someone has to apply what his owners are doing in order to decide whether or not he moves forward, all of it is disgusting. I'm no more hypocritical from going from a Browns logo to an NFL logo, but it makes me feel a little bit better about myself, so I'll just march down that path.
You mentioned feeling better about yourself. I can't help out of spewing acid that on ABC, I was delighted and surprised to see Ed Werder at Cowboys camp.
He's always there. Even when he wasn't with ESPN, he was still at Cowboys camp.
Ed Werder wasn't at ESPN, is back at ESPN. There was something soothing about ABC. I wasn't expecting to see him on ABC. I'm used to seeing him ESPN at Cowboys camp, but now they continue to grow and they're going to be everywhere. This virus is going to be everywhere, and it is so addictive that Ed Werder soothed me by being at Cowboys camp.
It's my sports North Star. And just know that it's always going to be there. And if I ever lose my way, I just look towards Dallas Cowboys camp, knowing that mustache is going to be there.
How long was Ed Werder not at ESPN?
Yeah, I think a couple of years. It was like 3 years at least. And it was like he hit the ground running. It was like he never left.
When did that get on ABC, though? When did we start covering Cowboys camp with Ed Werder on network television?
He was gone for 2 years. I'm not sure what you were watching on it, if they had like sports highlights, but
no, it wasn't sports highlights. It was it looked like a 30-minute NFL Sports Center.
Oh no, it was not 30 minutes. It was 3 hours. On Saturday afternoon from noon to 3 was Return to Football. Really? I actually watched a significant amount of it because it was before an MLS broadcast. But yeah, so it was like the NFL scheduled a day where from, I think it was like 8 in the morning until 7 at night, there was a different training camp practice going on that either ESPN, ABC, or NFL Network was live broadcasting from so they can present Return to Football.
And for all our blustering, we're not going to give a shit once Bills Rams kicks off on Thursday night. all that goes away. And you're just sucked into how awesome the sport is and how great the broadcasts are and how much money you have on one side. And, I need 7 catches from Cooper Kupp tonight. It's great. It's why it is a booming business still.
I just, look, man, okay, I love it too. I love this dirty thing. I love this sinful, unethical thing. But there are some things that happen. Like, for example, I know Trump is despicable, but when Ivana Trump, for tax purposes, it appears, I'm going to say appears because I
have to extend Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. I get you.
Well, maybe it was the kids, but to bury Ivana Trump, who dies mysteriously by staircase a day before the family's depositions, and then she's buried in a pauper's grave on his golf course because of property tax exemptions and 3 different kinds of tax exemptions, and I'm not numb to it yet. I'm not numb to, you can't just keep being so appalling all the time that I get numb to your lies because every last thing is more disgraceful than the last thing that makes it feel like you're not very human. I'm surprised that I shouldn't be, I guess, that 3 hours of football would be on Saturday, the return to football, and that this will be gone 6 games into the season.
All of it will be gone. It'll be gone the second Scott Hansen welcomes you to 7 hours of commercial-free football. You'll forget all of it. And you'll be reminded of it one Monday night broadcast that you will watch because
they don't talk about, they won't talk about that. They don't talk about this stuff there.
They'll talk about it the first game back, but they'll talk about the game once the game starts.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? As somebody who actually watched the Magic Johnson stuff on Apple and have been talking to you for a while about when this stuff gets antiseptic or when the stuff becomes slightly less of a truth because you're in partnership with Apple and Magic doesn't want his story told in the most honest way that would show him on Arsenio Hall and them celebrating that he didn't get it through gay sex. And you're not watching that on the documentary because Magic Johnson's in control of your product. When the NFL product is so large and so powerful and doesn't actually instigate change and lead, but uses that power only to make sure that its broadcast partners are talking only so much about Deshaun Watson, or its broadcast partners are only so comfortable, because people will tell you behind the scenes how the NFL runs these television networks. The NFL has an earned arrogance where they push everyone around. The NFL bows to no one and nothing in how it's presented and how things look. When the partnerships make it so this stuff can't be talked about honestly during a broadcast because people don't want it with their broadcast. Do you see how everything in the system conspires against the victim?
Yes.
Everything in the system.
Yes, 100%. From the broadcast partners having journalism entities, John McClain, who covered the Texans, said the broadcast partners were weighing in directly to the league on how the league should go about the Deshaun Watson thing. And who stands to gain from Deshaun Watson's return? ESPN, Monday Night Football, Halloween night, Bengals at Browns. That's going to do an amazing number. It's the whole system is rigged. It is rigged. And if you're a woman, you think it's rigged against you.
But you don't care that all of it is reality television, that all of it is insincere, that all of it is edited, that Hard Knocks, that when you get those honest moments of what do you mean Mike Zimmer was trying to fight Kirk Cousins? Like when you see these things, the real stuff spill out outside of the military school disciplines of football, and you get the real stuff. We all can't handle this beast. We can't handle how this stuff is made, what goes into making it, how it kills its players. We cannot begin to fathom what this vessel is. I will say that those players know this beast better than you, and it's why they don't love it quite as much as you do. They love the Sundays, but they don't feel like they're playing a game the rest of the time.
We like it too much. There are people that still actively smoke cigarettes, people that still turn to alcohol too much. And it tells you that it's not good for you, and you're ingesting it. I don't actually have to be on the field for the stuff that's bad for me, and I still get to have that level of enjoyment, I'm not going to stop that. I don't stop drinking. Think I'm going to stop that? I don't stop betting on it.
You don't stop drinking, but you're now taking Metamucil and you're doing that.
Right, because I don't want to stop drinking. I don't want to stop partying. I want to live the life that I did when I was 20, and I don't want to actually sacrifice any of my own enjoyment. So that's why I'm going to slather my face in Botox. I'm going to drink as much Metamucil as I can find, causing shortages all across the world, just so I can keep it going, because I eat first.